The last time you and I, Mark Spector and I, saw each other was inside Rogers Place. It was the final game of the National Hockey League season before it went on pause. Now we're back a little farther apart and standing outside the home arena of the Edmonton Oilers. Everyone's back, relatively speaking, but there's an image of a fallen teammate on the scoreboard as the Edmonton Oilers begin training camp. It's new, it's different, but in some ways maybe it's kind of still the same.
Yeah, it's the same group of guys, but under vastly different circumstances. It was an image on the scoreboard of Colby Cave, that greeted the Oilers as they came out today. It stayed up there the entire practice. You know, Gene, it's the same group of guys. They're all teammates, but they haven't seen each other much for the last 4 months. It's the same sport, but for some reason we're having training camp in July, and we're going to have playoffs 2 weeks from now. So it's going to take a while before everything that's so different starts to feel the same again. And a 2-week training camp probably is enough time that when we finally kick this thing off, the weirdness of what we're experiencing today kind of fades away a little bit.
Well, you mentioned the playoffs. Now that's something, we're not talking about normally in July, and it's not something you talk about at the start of a normal training camp, but it was a bit of a hot topic already for the Edmonton Oilers as they'll have to play in the play-in against Chicago.
Yeah, and Connor McDavid coming out today at practice looked absolutely lightning fast, fantastic. This is a player who rehabbed his knee, a very serious injury, tore his PCL last summer, came out in October to start the season and was fantastic. Would have, frankly, challenged Leon Draisaitl for the Art Ross had he not been hurt for a few games down the stretch. So he begins practice and training camp with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on his left wing, Zach Kassian on the right, and news in his head that Connor McDavid gets to play in the next 2 Olympic Games. So this guy is really motivated, and that could be bad news for the Chicago Blackhawks, Gino.
Yeah, and we're kind of wondering about Chicago because to start the previous decade, they won 3 cups and were, a mini dynasty at least. And now they come in here likely thinking that they would not have a shot at any kind of playoffs. How do you think this sets up? Because the Edmonton Oilers are already talking about the fact they'll have to face off against the Hawks.
Look, Chicago gives up more chances than anybody. They're not great defensively, and they count on their goaltenders. Corey Crawford carried them at times this year. Word out of Chicago today is he is absent right now, and he was not at practice for the Blackhawks. Too early to speculate on what's going on there, but I'm here to tell you, Gino, the Blackhawks have got some great players and they've got a chance to win this series, but if they're not playing Corey Crawford in goal, the odds makers are going to change their odds on this one awful quick.
Well, Chicago is the Windy City, but I would say, at least for today, the Alberta capital is also the Windy City, and I think my hair would agree with you. For Mark Spector, I'm Gene Principe for Sportsnet in Edmonton.